I've been buried in this for honestly months. Been reading ethics reports, government transcripts, committee transcripts, investor pages all across the web. A lot of government announcements, cross-checking this fact with that fact without going and spiraling into some kind of a crazy psychopathic rabbit hole. All the other stories that I had talked to you about felt so grand until I decided to read one document. I couldn't believe what I was reading because this whole thing required a master key. And as this master key becomes understood, it will literally open up to you and everybody exactly what has been wrong with Carney and Brookfield and everything he's been doing since the day he joined the Liberal Party until today. Okay, let me back up. The closest person that's come to what I've been able to understand is Democracy Watch. Duff Conacher was in committee and he talked about this, that the ethics screens and all these things for Mark Carney are all smokescreen. But what I never understood is that Mark Carney has found a way in the law to bypass all these things that would be conflicts of interest. It's not simply that he's just avoiding conflicts of interest. It's not simply that he's getting away with conflicts of interest. No, he's doing it worse. I found exactly why and how and what he's doing. Once I lay this out for you, believe me, you will not be able to unsee this. So I'm going to walk you through what's on paper, what can be proven, and I'm going to let you be the judge. This is not going to be quick. In order to do this, we need to start in 2020. Brookfield Asset Management basically announced Mark Carney as vice chair and head of ESG impact fund investing. Then Carney becomes prime minister. And the answer we're given when it relates to Brookfield from the Office of the Ethics Commissioner is, we're doing a screen on all this. Let's talk about what the screen did and what it did not do. Before we continue, I want you to look. We have a copy of Carney's ethics disclosure to the Ethics Commissioner. Watch. So as you're looking at this, according to Carney's own public ethics disclosure, he and the Ethics Commissioner agreed to a screen, okay, aimed at preventing any opportunity to further his interests or to improperly further those of Brookfield Asset Management, Brookfield Corporation, and Stripe Inc., and any other company owned or controlled by them. So when you look at this as it is on paper, this looks like there's an actual wall right between him and his conflicts. For instance, if a cabinet wants to decide we're planning on giving contracts out to Brookfield, well, Mark Carney can't be there. He's not allowed to be there. Not allowed to discuss it, even outside. He's not allowed to talk about Stripe, Brookfield, or any of the investments that he had. You ready for this now? This is what I was missing. There's an exception built directly into this law, though. In the statute itself, the Conflict of Interest Act, Section 2(1)(a) says a private interest, the kind that actually triggers this screen, does not include a decision that is of general application or one that affects public office holders as one of a broad class of persons. Confusing, right? I was confused too. I didn't understand what any of this meant. You look at Carney's own file to the Ethics Commissioner states, and I quote, can take part in discussions or decisions that affect the companies if they are members of a broad class of persons. You're still not following, are you? Okay. Here's what this means basically in practice, if you're still not following along with those two areas in the Conflict of Interest Act 2(1)(a). The government announces a new clean energy investment program, but the document says clean energy sector. It doesn't say contracts to Brookfield. It's lumped everything into a sector. Remember this, sector. Under Section 2(1)(a), that is of general application. The screen won't kick in. Carney gets to literally sit in that meeting. Cabinet approves support for infrastructure fund. But the language says infrastructure sector. Same thing. Broad application. It's not saying this is going to Brookfield. It's saying sector, a sector. And within this sector, multiple companies can converge into this sector of development. Do you see how this is bypassed? The entire thing hinges on this one line of two laws. Everything Carney gets to do hinges on the Ethics Commissioner and these two lines that permit him to not deal directly with the companies or issue contracts to these companies. No, if they call them sectors, these are broad application situation. And you can see how this is going to go and go. The government of Canada wants to develop more nuclear energy. Okay, let's call it the nuclear energy sector. We're right back to the same place. Are you seeing the con in all this? It's not even so much him. Yes, in my estimation, I don't like that he or anyone else is gaming it this way. Nobody is writing a check to Brookfield. That's never going to happen. There's no brown envelope here to Brookfield. What they write instead is This is for the clean energy sector. And within that sector could be 3 people, 4 people, 100 people. But Brookfield can definitely be in that sector. Do you see how this works? This is why this opens up the Pandora's box that I wanted to explain to you. Carney is basically working with the liberal government on this concept of sectors, folks. And this is how he's able to bypass all this. Let's go a bit deeper. At this stage, Brookfield is profiting from major sectoral shifts from the liberal government and funding that is moving around from sector to sector. Not to them directly, from sector to sector. All they have to do is be first or second in line in that sector. So let's get back to Carney's ethics screen. The ethics screen covers 103 named companies. Carney himself submitted that list when he created his blind trust. It's basically a snapshot of what he disclosed at a single point in time. You're wondering, Vesper, why does that matter? Brookfield controls or manages roughly 2,000 entities worldwide. So for instance, a company that Brookfield decided to acquire after that blind trust was created and that list that was provided by Carney to the ethics commissioner, that wouldn't show up. But this only gets worse. Brookfield Corporation, Brookfield Asset Management are essentially the trunk here of this tree. This is where Carney holds all his shares and deferred compensation, okay? Keep that in mind. The 2,000 company are the branches of this tree. There are over 2,000 branches, and the screen only covered 103 of those branches. Remember, you don't even really need to name the branches to benefit from this tree. When the branches do well, the trunk gets stronger. When the trunk gets stronger, the branches do really well and the leaves blossom. When Brookfield is doing good, Carney's value goes up. The problem is it's not the 103 names that we should all be focused on for his conflict. It's the entire bloody trunk of 2,000 companies that belong to Brookfield Asset Management and Brookfield Corp. This trunk or platform benefits every single time the federal government writes a check for a sector that Brookfield works in. Are you starting to see it now? The sector would be the plot of land. The biggest tree on the block, that's the massive tree in the middle, is Brookfield. He can't walk up to that tree and decide, I'm going to water that tree. He can't do that. What he can do is say, this entire plot of land here, I'm going to dump a ton of water in here, not for just that tree, for anybody else. But really, the one that's going to suck up the most water is going to be that tree. Carney has designated sectors or plots of land as investable to get around the ethics screen and ethics liabilities and laws. He knows this. If it's a direct connection to them, he can't do it. But if it's for sectors, hey, if Brookfield wants to join, I'm not going to stop them. I didn't tell them to join. They joined. That's how it works. Okay. Another troubling thing has gotten very little attention is who is running these screens. So the screen is administered by 2 people, Marc-André Blanchard, Carney's chief of staff, and Michael Sabia, the clerk of the Privy Council. The ethics committee surfaced a critical problem. Neither was given the full list of assets inside Carney's blind trust. They're essentially making conflict of interest calls without knowing exactly what the hell this guy is holding. If Carney holds an indirect position, let's say through a Brookfield fund vehicle that's, isn't on the 103 company list, and Blanchard and Sabia don't know about it, when a decision comes in front of them that affects that company, nobody flags it. And the screen will never trigger it. There is no real-time public log. We don't have any recordings or written records or reasoning why Canadians can even access these bullshit decisions that are being made. Let's talk about access and lobbying. Within days of Mark Carney taking office, did you know that North River Midstream lobbied Carney on April 30th of 2025? Who are they, you may be asking? I'm glad you asked. North River is a Brookfield infrastructure portfolio company that's stated on their own website. Their federal lobbying registration lists Brookfield Corporation as the parent company. Their own description of the outreach asking government to consider North River in the investment decision. In a separate matter, on May 6th, Carney met with Sam Pollock, CEO of Brookfield Infrastructure Partners. This is just a month after, folks. This was a separate occasion. He met with Justin Beber, Brookfield CEO, who later testified at the Parliamentary Ethics Committee, confirming that yes, me and Mark met. Brookfield met with Carney months after he gets elected. But here's the thing. Brookfield's position is that these meetings, they weren't really about anything big. There was no specific business decisions here. Mark Carney is being screened by the ethics commissioner over any ties to Brookfield. And 2 months or 1 month after you're elected, the COO and the CEO of Brookfield decide, hey, we're just going to come see you as prime minister. There's more to talk about this. There are companies that very few people have heard of. And I need to make this in 2 parts. The companies that nobody has yet seen, and an angle to this that frankly boggles the mind. I don't want to give too much away right now, but it requires so much work and grinding to do this. I hope today, at the very least, you were able to understand how Brookfield is able to get away with doing all of this with Mark Carney, because all of it hinged on an innocuous law written in the Ethics Act, Section 21A, broader class of persons. Once you understand this, then everything begins to make sense with all these sector companies and all these investments that he's giving into. He's going into AI sector. He's going into renewable sector. He's going into this sector, this sector, billions and billions and billions of dollars. And Brookfield, in the next report, is literally lined up to be first in line. And I'm going to show it to you.